Hey, welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that can feel super confusing and honestly pretty isolating: panic attacks. We're going to break down exactly what they are, get into why they happen, and most importantly, talk about how you can find your ground when it feels like you're losing it. So let's get into it.
My heart is racing. I can't breathe. I think I'm going to pass out.
You know, if any of that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. It's that sudden, just overwhelming wave of fear that seems to crash down on you for absolutely no reason. It's a terrifying experience, and our whole goal today is to bring a little bit of clarity to all that chaos. All right, so let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly is a panic attack? Just being able to put a name and a definition to this feeling is, believe it or not, the first huge step toward understanding it. So, the official definition is a sudden surge of intense fear that peaks within minutes. But here's the really important part: it triggers very real, very severe physical reactions, even when there's no actual danger around you. So it feels like you're in mortal danger, but the threat isn't outside, it's all happening inside your own body. What's going on here is really a two-front war: what's happening in your body and what's happening in your mind. Physically, you've got that terrifying heart pounding out of your chest feeling, you're gasping for air, maybe you're trembling and you just can't stop it. And then at the same time, mentally, you're flooded with these catastrophic thoughts. The fear that you're losing your mind, that this is it, I'm having a heart attack, or that you're about to collapse right in front of everyone. It's that vicious 1-2 punch that makes it all feel so incredibly intense. So the big question is, why? Why does this even happen? It can feel completely random, but there's actually a biological process going on here. Think of it as your brain's very sensitive alarm system going off by mistake. See, at the very core of a panic attack is this amazing ancient survival tool: the fight or flight response. This is your body's built-in alarm, and it's designed to save your life from real physical danger. It floods your system with adrenaline so you can, jump out of the way of a speeding car. It's a good thing. The problem is, sometimes that alarm gets a false positive, and this is the cycle it creates. It starts with a tiny trigger. Could be a stressful thought, could be just feeling a little dizzy. Your brain misreads it as a huge threat and pulls the fire alarm. Boom, adrenaline floods your body. Your heart races. You can't breathe. But here's the kicker, the real trap. Your brain then interprets those physical feelings as proof that something is terribly wrong. You think, my heart is pounding, so I must be dying. And that thought creates even more fear, which releases more adrenaline, and, well, you see how the cycle just keeps feeding itself. Now, when we're trapped in that terrifying cycle, we naturally do things to try and feel safe, right? We might run out of the building, call someone for help, or desperately look for an escape route. These are called safety behaviors, and while they feel like the right thing to do in the moment, they actually end up making the whole problem worse in the long run. And this breakdown shows you why. On the one hand, safety behaviors, like avoiding a store where you once had an attack, give you instant relief. Phew, you escaped. But what does that teach your brain? It teaches your brain that the store is dangerous, and you are right to run away. It just reinforces the fear. Coping skills, on the other hand, are all about learning to stay with that uncomfortable feeling. They teach your brain that, yeah, these sensations are awful, but they aren't actually dangerous, and that you are strong enough to handle them. That's how you break the cycle. Okay, so this brings us to our final and maybe the most important section: taking action. Knowing what a panic attack is and why it happens is super empowering, but what can you actually do? Let's talk about some real, practical steps for finding your grounding. First things first, it is absolutely crucial to know when it's time to get some professional support. If you find yourself constantly walking on eggshells, worried about the next attack, or if you start avoiding places you used to go, that's a big sign it's time to talk to a doctor or a therapist. When that fear starts making your world smaller and getting in the way of your life, that is a clear signal to get help. But what about in the heat of the moment, when you're right in the middle of that storm and everything feels completely overwhelming? Well, there's a simple, really powerful technique you can use to anchor yourself back to right here, right now. It's called the 3-2-1 grounding technique. It is incredibly simple. You just hit pause and deliberately notice your surroundings. First, look around and name 3 things you can see: a book, a lamp, a spot on the carpet, anything. Then, notice 2 things you can physically feel. Maybe it's your feet on the floor or the texture of your shirt. And finally, listen for 1 single sound. What this does is it pulls your focus out of that internal tornado of panic and plants you firmly in the real physical world. It's like a circuit breaker for your brain. And that really leads us to a final, pretty powerful thought. So often, we think the goal is to just get rid of the anxiety, to never ever have another panic attack again. But what if we reframe that? What if the real goal isn't to eliminate the feeling, but to prove to yourself over and over that you can feel it and you will survive it? Because that's where the real power is.